ReasonConf is brought to you by our gold sponsors Ahrefs and Chain Street.
So good morning, everyone. A couple of weeks ago, I got very excited about this hooks branch that was available on the Reason React repo and the hard work that Ricky's been doing. And I've started playing with it, and I wanted to write something with it. And what can be better than just yet another Hacker News client? So I've got a couple of learnings with this. First of all, I want to apologize. There are a lot of buzzwords in my talk, and that's all the buzzwords. So I'm a buzzword-driven developer. That's what I do. You don't have to be good when you know all this. You just have to list them somewhere, and you get a good job. Okay, so I started this small report that I've linked into the Discord a couple of times. So it's where all the code is available. The code is horrible, and it's nothing fancy. Actually, the project doesn't even look good because I spent so much time setting up everything that I didn't get to write much reason at the end. So again, the goal was wanting to create a Reason React app with this in mind. So it's checking all this stuff. So 100% performance, 100% accessibility, best practice, SEO. So it means you have to do server-side rendering, you have to pre-hydrate server-side queries, GraphQL queries on using nodes while you're doing SSR, etc. And there are a lot of things you have to do to have a 100% progressive web app, etc. So I'll list a couple of things that I've done. So the first thing that I started with is bundling is still overcomplicated if you want to server-side all the things. So when you have to do server-side, you have to build multiple bundles, ones for Node, ones from your client. If you want to go a bit more fancy, you're going to have some slides later on. You have to build multiple bundles, one for, let's say, Internet Explorer, 11, etc. And it's really, really still difficult. I saw this tweet from this guy, Ken Widott, as always swearing, that is like, I don't want to offend any of the Webpack people, but Rollup is amazing if you want to build a website. You can use Rollup not just to build a library. Everyone thinks Rollup can be used for a library. But originally I started with Parcel, but I think Parcel does a little bit too much. And just for people wondering, if you're really pragmatic and you want to use something that's really good and that's use Webpack, Next.js is super good. I use Next.js every day, it's really good, but I wanted to try to do something else. So that's just if you're not familiar with the module, no module, that's how you build multiple bundle. Legacy, there's no reason yet, sorry. So the first gotcha that I experienced when I was using the new Reason React was I was running multiple versions of React, and hook will stop working. So I had this horrible message saying, hey, something's wrong. I was using the static use URL from Reason React, the new hooks, and it wouldn't work. And what I realized is that I had this multiple version of React running, and with Yarn you can fix it by doing this. I still think I've opened an issues on Reason React. I think we shouldn't bundle React with Reason, because if you have different version of React, you'll always experience this problem with hooks. Learning number one. Reason React is amazing, and as we saw yesterday, you don't have to do much this day. You don't even really have to use gentype, just if you want to use component from JavaScript directly. So that's, for example, using hooks with GraphQL and React async rendering and testing stories still very difficult, and I wanted to use some recent changes that React testing library had, so I didn't get the chance to use BS React testing library, so I just wanted to use something straight from JavaScript. And as you can see, if you look at make app, the third line, it's super easy to link to a Reason component without having to use gentype anymore. You just use make, and you use the make as you would another component. It's like UD4 import if you want. Okay, so that's really cool. So you can still do this stuff and you use the latest library. I love the new Reason React. Again, the new use routing, use URL, or whatever it's called. Yeah, use URL from the React router is really cool. Thanks to Ricky for adding a last-minute change that let me do static rendering. So it means I could pass a server path. I open an issue and fix it right away. That was really cool. It let me do, coming from server-side rendering, if I come from a different path that isn't slash, for example, /more, I can still inject this URL to my use URL. As you can see on the somewhere, and so I can render without having a flash of the original URL, that's slash and then, let's say, more. Again, it's just this component. I removed so much code when I started using use URL. Buckle script, if you're crazy about your bundle, so the only way to render really fast on the web is to have a really small bundle. And once you start adding Reason React and Buckle script, Reason React has no bundle cost, almost nothing. But Buckle script still add a couple of not megabyte, I think it's 40 kilobytes to your bundle. I might be super wrong, and I didn't check with the latest one, but if you should be aware that there is a cost to add this to your bundle. But it does a lot of things, like it replaces Lodash a lot of different things. But if you're crazy like me, you can do some stuff like, so you get a 40 kilobytes extra in your bundle, but if you want to get rid of it, for example, you can use to let us Preact X, and you use Preact compat, and you get rid of this 40 kilobyte because you use Preact instead of React. And to let us Preact X has hooks and everything. It's really, really nice. So it's a solution if you really care about your bundle size. It's something I've tried that I haven't done on my repo. But the story, I'm a little bit disappointed with the story with Reason Buckle script package with ES6. It's often broken. For example, I started using, first of all, the reason I wanted to use Rollup as well, and I got super excited about Rollup, is because Rollup love ES6. And Buckle script can output to ES6. But then when I started using more and more ES6 packages, etc., I realized that, for example, Reason Apollo doesn't work, BS Express doesn't work with ES6. There are issues open everywhere, but it's just slow. It seems that nobody is using ES6. Everyone's using CommonJS. So it's something to remember if you're a person writing BS packages. Please care about the ES6 people. And if you have problems, at first you say, oh, what am I going to do? I cannot use BS Express. But there's nothing wrong. You just write your own binding, and it's super easy. I mean, easy. There's a couple of blog posts. So, for example, BS Express wasn't working with ES6. I decided I'm just going to write a tiny little binding for what I need for my app, and it just worked. It's wonderful. And what I really like with this is I checked my bs.js, and I always look at, I write some Reason code, and then I looked at the JavaScript code, and if it makes sense, I know I've written the right things. I think it's so great. You can create your own GraphQL server in pure Reason and still target Node. So there's this, a couple of weeks ago, this Reason GraphQL library that got released that is really nice. I mean, still a couple of issues, but it's really nice. So you can target Node, so you can still use Node or SH, etc. But you don't have to use GraphQL JS, etc. So you don't have to have any binding. It's still a very much work in progress. There's an example in the repo I've linked. It's what it looks like. It looks just like GraphQL OCaml. GraphQL PPX is amazing. Again, I wanted to use GraphQL hooks, server-side, etc. And I decided to use this library called GraphQL hooks. What a great name. And it's got, I just linked, I wanted to use types with everything. So it was really easy to integrate GraphQL PPX with my little GraphQL hooks bindings. So I got types and everything. So if you look at this example, you can see I just breached the use query, and then on the query pass and query, that's what comes from GraphQL PPX. So I've got a query that is a string, and I can pass, given a JSON, I can pass the query, and I got a typed something coming back. It's really, really nice and super convenient. I was thinking I have to use Apollo to have proper typing, etc., or Reason Apollo, etc., but it's not the case. And it pretty blew my mind. That's how you use it. For example, let's look at the third lines. Let's result GraphQL, use query, and then you do all the classic dance of switching for everything. It does the job. It's really nice. And not just something that isn't Reason. So to let us, modern tooling is amazing. So I think we are coming to this world that we have so many things that are free and available, like Storybook, Percy.io, and now.sh, Rollup, all these amazing things that are there to use and free. I really want to say thank you to everyone doing this. There's one thing that I really like, so GitHub Actions has this free CI for you that lets you do everything. So on my project, for example, I just install, run all the tests, use Puppet to do end-to-end testing. I use Parcel.io to snapshot, and I deploy this to Node. And all this in no time. It's amazing. And I just want to touch base on, I always see people reaching for doing a snapshot comparison with Jest, etc. But I just want to mention this, like a screen diff is worth 1,000 snapshot tests, thanks to Storybook and Percy. So I had those massive JSON snapshots that makes no sense. So if you take the time to output it somewhere and then use Percy, that is free to use, you just, every time you have a code change, you see, oh, nothing's changed, everything is good. So it's very easy when you write your library. And it's so much better than a lot of JSON. Again, it's free, Percy.io. And I really like to use now.sh and Lambda because I think it's the Windows of these days. It's more like, you know, when we had this mention of buckle script, it always restarts, so it doesn't have memory leaks. So it's the same with Lambda. You have no long running memory leaks because you server infinitely scale and always restart. So it's wonderful. And yeah, so for any questions, anything, I had a first issue open today. I'm not sure if you're in the room, thank you. Forgot to update the README, but there's some great ideas in there. If you want to have it. Thank you, that's it.